Thank you for being with me on this journey of 52 weeks of why. This week, I'm a very good friend who I've met through Fairway, and we just kind of hit it off the day we met, and I'm happy that he's here. But before I go into that, want to share a quick quote. This one is from J.B. Matthews. J.B. Matthews says, "A great occasion is worth to a man exactly what his preparation enables him to make of it." I think that our why leads into that preparation, right? When we're thinking about our why and what motivates us on a day-to-day basis, when those occasions or opportunities are presented to us, we are ready for them. And that quote really hits home with me about picturing who you want to be and then being it and having that why be your motivation. So my guest today is Ryan Grant. Ryan is in California, born and raised California guy. So Ryan, I didn't tell you this, but I'm a Florida boy. Been in Florida for 15 years before I moved to Ohio. And California was always kind of like a foreign land to me, being in Florida, because Florida, it's kind of like its own country, kind of like Texas is its own country. Florida is very much the same. I think California, you'd probably say, is the same way, right? We all just kind of have our own mentalities. So Ryan, in the business a long time, just like I am, helping people buy houses. Started in 2005, right out of college, had aspirations of going to higher levels of education and join the mortgage business. And here we are 15 years later, still in the mortgage business. Ryan, very similar lifestyle situation to me, married 6.5 years, has a 3 and a 5-year-old. So Ryan, I don't think I told you this, but I have an 8, a 5, and a 3-year-old. So we're right smack in that toddlerdom chaos of life. So I didn't ask you this. How long have you been? When did you join Fairway?
It'll be 3 years in June.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask some more questions as we get rolling, but first I want to hear truly share with us your why.
Yeah, our why has definitely evolved over time. At its current state, it's really to change the way that real estate and mortgage industry is done for the betterment of the consumer. I really fundamentally believe that it's a shame that we don't teach real estate or finance anywhere in our society at any stage of education. And the fact that we give people a significant asset in their home and a significant liability in their mortgage, with the assumption that they're going to know what to do with it afterwards, I just think is inappropriate and borderline irresponsible. So my why now is to change that, right? To really deliver a more value-based platform that our clients can not only buy a home from or finance a home from, but really grow their generational wealth and make smart decisions and be a part of the growing economy and not left out by it, which we're excited to perform on.
I think you're hitting on something that I've kind of agreed with in the last few years. In my area, those challenges are much more specific to credit, where we have individuals who in rural America never used credit, right? Never had a credit card. They were taught to save and spend and only spend what they could save. And then they come and they want to buy a house. And because they've never used credit, they face this extra challenge of, well, you've got to establish some credit before you can buy a home.
Right.
And they're not given that education. I tell everybody that you could achieve the highest level of education our nation has to offer, and you will never be taught about credit. And to your point, you'll never be taught about homeownership, right? You'll never be taught about the benefits of homeownership, and you'll never be taught about the responsibility that you have for the assets and the responsibility you have for the mortgage after you get to closing. Very powerful. So is this, how did we arrive at this why? I'm assuming that this is something that's relatively new in your life. Is it years, or is it as recent as a few months? Tell me how we got here.
We've arrived at it over time. I think we initially arrived at it out of necessity. And then when I started really researching it and doing more kind of a deep dive into where we've come from and where we are now, it's become more of a passion. So when I started in 2000, well, I started in 2005. I was just working at a call center. I was 21 years old, and it was the Wild West days of doing mortgages, and I just did what I was told, right? And so that ride lasted for a short period of time. Made my way through the crisis, kind of came out the other side, and in 2011, after a lot of different variations of the mortgage business, I decided to get into the relationship-based, business model. I'd never met a realtor to that point. I'd never done a purchase to that point. And so I just decided, okay, I'm going to go try this. And for the first 2-3 years, I wasn't doing anything other than trying to be around, right? Just being at open houses, talking to realtors, and I would get business. And, looking back, I don't know why any client chose to work with me, because there was nothing other than, yep, here's your rate, here's your term, here's your loan, right? This is, if you want a 30-year fix with cheese, here it is. And
True,
so
and a charming smile and some good hair and, a little bit of sense of fashion, all of a sudden you're getting sales, huh?
Yeah, and it's really a terrible thing to think about, but it could have been the case. From there, I realized, okay, we got to change. We have to be different, right? We have to really stand out, right? Because every time you start to gain ground and then you start to lose it, you realize that you can't rely on, like the great book, "What got you here won't get you there," right? So we continually have to kind of re-evolve. So for the middle kind of part of my newer career, I focus exclusively on service, right? So we need to have the best customer service, the best client experience. We created a nationally renowned client experience process where, we left no thought uncovered, and the clients had an incredible experience from the first phone call all the way through closing. And that took us even farther, right? Real estate agents loved it, clients loved it, people raved about it. It was a real differentiator. And 2017 came around, we saw pretty significant margin compression, which really just meant we were being commoditized at a higher level, right? And I started realizing, okay, well, people aren't fighting on the service thing anymore. And 25 basis points, a quarter point difference in rate in our market is equivalent to 80 basis points, or I'm sorry, $80 a month, which, can be about $10,000 over 10 years. And so I asked myself the question, would someone pay $10,000 over 10 years for service, right? Or for better service? And I thought, well, I wouldn't, right? And so, I can't stand on service alone. So as opposed to trying to come up with a new way to talk about how great we were, I said, why don't we just solve the problem that exists? So I just went on this fact-finding mission to figure out, okay, what's the consumer's biggest problem? And it wasn't actually buying a home. Buying a home is not that difficult, right? Credit, income, assets, you qualify, here you go, down payment, you're in, right? The problem then becomes what happens after that, right? So anybody can just own a home, but very few people become successful homeowners. And it's good to how to manage all of this stuff moving forward, and they can't, right? It's not something that they do well. So when I figured out, okay, if we just add more value to the process, right? If we can tell a client that we can make them and save them more money than any other mortgage professional in the country by giving them our post-closing experience and by helping them with generational wealth planning and real estate planning for the future, understanding how it's going to impact their retirement, helping ensure the home is protected at a high level. I mean, the simple fact that we don't ask the question about umbrella insurance, life insurance or disability insurance when someone's buying a home, and we don't really care as an industry, just seems wildly inappropriate, right? Because they work so hard to get the asset, and in a matter of an instant, 16-year-old gets in a car accident, they lose their house because they don't have a good umbrella policy, right? They get hurt, can't work anymore, don't have a good disability insurance policy, home's gone, right? But we don't talk about it, we don't help them with it, we don't help them plan through it. And I didn't feel good with that, so we completely retooled our entire business model. We created a whole business platform around called the art of homeownership, but helping people master the art of becoming a home. And it's been incredibly successful for us, and our clients have been the beneficiaries of it. Our loan officers have seen incredible success from it because for the first time, I think the consumer is starting to realize that we care about more than the transaction, right? We legitimately care about helping them because we know that they probably won't be able to do it on their own. And so that's evolved into what it is now. So my why now is I want to do two things. I want to upset the consumer. Right? So if Joe is sitting there in his house and he's talking to his friend who has the Art of Homeownership platform, he's getting concierge service, he's getting this, that, and the other. And Joe Smith says, wait a minute, I got a realtor. I don't have any of this stuff. Like, why did I get left behind? So I want to upset the Joe Smiths of the world so they demand more out of their real estate mortgage professionals moving forward. And then I want to drive a wedge down the middle of our industry where the consumer is going to make a clear distinction. Like, I'm either going to go with the most valuable version of a real estate agent and lender because they've committed to helping me in my life, or I'm going to go with the cheapest. And I know what I'm leaving on the table, but I'm not going to choose someone in the middle. I'm not going to go with someone who's not the cheapest and not the most valuable. Right? That's the real why at the moment.
I recall when I first started in the industry that there was an analogy for buying a home that just talked about our three major milestones that both you and I have gone through, which are getting married, having children, and buying a home. And comparing each of those three milestones and the level of shopping that you do and the level of seriousness that you take it and how you make decisions about getting married and having children, and then also about buying a house, right? And putting yourself in that perspective of the consumer when you're making that decision, it's so helpful, right? You're hitting on something that I think is so important as an industry as well, because you said we tend to be very transactional, and after the loan is closed, we tend to move on to the next person who we are helping only in the purchase process or only in the refi process. But after that process is complete, there isn't usually a good follow-up system for teaching them about the asset, right? Similar to, not necessarily a perfect analogy, but similar to giving somebody just a very small piece of guidance regarding their credit, and then counting on them to know what to do with that guidance of their credit 5 years from now.
Right.
Because you've only given them one little component. 5 years from now, that component will be different. 5 years after they buy their home, their experience will be different being in the home. Man, it's so cool. And I've heard you talk about this, so it's neat to hear it articulated in this manner. So in your day-to-day interactions, both when you wake up, as you're going through your day, and as you finish your day, how does this why become realized and become fulfilled each day that you go to the office, or each week, or each quarter?
I mean, we are all very intentional about what we're doing, right? Our whole region realizes that we are trying to change an industry that has historically been very transactional in nature. So not only is it against the grain for our industry, it's against the grain for the consumer to even understand, right? Because it's like, well, by the time we get done telling people what we do and who we are and how beneficial we're going to be, they're trying to figure out, okay, so are you a financial advisor? So, do you sell these services? And we have to tell them, not all these services. But it's important that they understand that we know what questions to ask, right? We know the importance of how to put together a comprehensive strategy for them. And the fact that, all of our loan officers realize that you really should never tell someone how much money to bring in to close unless you know if they have, proper insurance, if they have an estate plan or a will or a trust, if they have a good retirement place, but we don't ask those questions, yet we're giving advice and guidance on rate, term, closing costs, fees. Like, how could you possibly give a well-rounded, financial guidance to someone from a holistic standpoint if you're not trained on what to ask, right? And then how can you ensure that they act on it if you don't have a process and system in place to follow up as their life changes and evolves? Because it inevitably will. So we train on that consistently. We have weekly trainings. We role play on it. We talk about wins and losses that we have because it is an evolving thing, and we know that not every client is going to understand it, right? Some clients are going to feel like, well, this is confusing, this is different, and that's okay because nothing great ever happened that was easy. right? I think it was John F. Kennedy said, we're not going to the moon because it's easy. We're going because it's hard, right? Like you do things that are hard because they're necessary, right? And that's what we're trying to accomplish.
This being your why, do you have an image in the future of this being fulfilled on an industry level, on a personal level? Kind of tell me what that fulfillment, what it looks like to you.
Yeah, I believe that it will be a very distinct separator between the professional consultants in the mortgage business and the salespeople in the mortgage business. And my goal is to get the salespeople out of the mortgage business, because when it comes to getting a mortgage, there should be no sales included at all. Right? The only time that there's a sale is if you're trying to sell why you versus someone else. Right? Now, if everybody ultimately ends up adopting this style of doing business, then yeah, we'll have to sell, but we'll be able to sell based upon merit at that point. Right? Here's our clients. Here's how successful they've become. We took this single mother who was struggling to buy her first home, and now she has 3 rental properties, and she's going to, create generational wealth for her family, which she wouldn't have done without us. Like those are the wins. And my goal is that when people are referred, not only to us but to anybody, the referral is, hey Ryan, William told me to call you. He said that you're, just incredibly intelligent with real estate and finances, and I'd love to talk to you and see if you can help. Right? Nowhere in there did he say, William said you had great rates. Or William said that you are great service, or that you're super friendly. Right? Those are all great, and we want to have those, right? But we want people to choose us based upon our merit.
Yeah, and I like the idea. It's almost, I don't want to say it's leveling the playing field. It's raising the bar of the playing field, right? So we're operating at a certain
standard.
Correct. Yeah, we're operating at a certain level right now, and you having been in multiple seats within the industry, can relate to the salesperson specifically from when you started straight out of college to progressing out of the foreclosure crisis into the role that you're in now. And it's cool how, and I talked about this with one of my prior interviews in 52 Weeks of Why, how as we progress in age, we're able to go back and look in retrospect at the things that we've done and what we've learned. And it's so cool to me how those things that we've experienced, done, and learned create a why for us, right? Yeah. I'm sure that the why for you, this came out of prior experiences and prior work environments. And again, you found a gap that you're successfully filling. And I agree that the gap is there. And I think I think it would be amazing if we could get it accomplished industry-wide. And I think it would be so beneficial to every single person who's buying a home to have that consistency of follow-up with their asset and their life situation. Any final thoughts before we finish up?
No, I appreciate you having me on. Looking forward to watching the other 51 of these, and I appreciate you doing this. I've always had the fortune of learning from people like yourself and people across our industry, and it's helped shape why we do what we do and how we do it. So I just want to thank you for doing something like this, because everyone's getting better, and not only professionally, personally for it.
Yeah, it's truly an exploration for me, right? Every single person is so unique in their why. There's some congruency there. Some of them are very unique in their relationship with family and how it relates to their why. Other people, it's work and how it relates to their why. Other people have had so many whys that have progressed through their life that it's just cool to hear, because we're both kind of at that age and with children where my why personally is changing, because my kids are growing up, and I have to start changing the way that I think and interact with them while still performing on a day-to-day basis at my job and my career, and establishing a legacy, as you're calling, for my kids. Yep. And it's a really cool exploration. Man, thank you. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing you here in a couple months.